So welcome everyone. My name is Sam Muzio from EHE Health. For those of you that don't know me, I'm your well-being program manager here at EHE. And I am so excited to bring Jonathan Berman. He's a licensed clinical social worker here, and he's one of our amazing health mentors at EHE Health to discuss the topic of empathy and emotional well-being. So Jonathan, if you'd like to take it away.
All right, thanks, Sam. And it's great to have the time to talk to all of you today about empathy and emotional well-being. We give a lot of presentations for EHE, and this is the first one that's really focused on empathy. But I would say empathy is the hallmark of kind of everything I talk about, being kind of the mental health specialist as with the health mentors. So just because we have a half hour, I'm going to jump right into it today. First slide, and probably the most important thing, is what is empathy? Empathy is not sympathy. It's the ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be thinking or feeling. Some of you may have heard the term an empath. I've been told I'm an empath. I kind of see it myself, where I can really kind of sense what other people are feeling. Coming from a mental health background, doing mental health counseling before this position, obviously pre-pandemic, working with people in the office, really sensing people's energy. And I think that's really important, what we're going to kind of discuss today in regards to emotional well-being, how you can be there for your colleagues. And empathy is so important. It's something that cultivating empathy is possible at any time of your life. I do think it's an innate ability to an extent, but it's something that we can all kind of figure out. It's something that we can all kind of discover. And throughout this presentation, we can kind of learn different ways of like kind of how to build that empathy, and how empathy is so integral in terms of navigating relationships, not only with yourself, but with your colleagues, your family, your friends. So I really want this to be an active presentation. I know we've all been through those really boring PowerPoint presentations. So please, the best way for you guys to learn and for this to go smoothly is for you to interact if possible. So the first thing I'm going to ask today is, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word empathy? So I'll give you guys some time to answer. Again, probably the easiest if you just put it in the chat box below. I'm monitoring that. And again, active participation will be the most helpful. So I actually do have an answer already. This is from Fabrizio. First thing that comes to mind for him is just support. And I think that's a really good thing, because I think with empathy, it's an awareness, it's supporting ourselves, it's supporting others, it's being able to understand what people are going through. And then we have a nice answer there from Sam: kindness, patience, because it's very true. We have to have empathy with, we have to have kindness, we have to have patience and understanding when we're discovering like kind of what somebody's going through. And I'm seeing some nice answers here from Kimmy. Empathy is being able to feel and be in tune with others. That's totally true. That's kind of what I would describe as an empath. And I see Katie truly understanding what someone is going through, because sympathy is really feeling the same things. Okay, if your friend is sad, then you're sad. Empathy is a lot different than that. Empathy is being able to understand. Nothing wrong with being sympathetic with someone, but empathy is the ability to understand, but not necessarily go through what they're thinking. And then Erin just said, putting yourself in other people's shoes. That's a really good point. And I think especially when we talk about your population at work, it's really important, whether somebody's going through a crisis at home or maybe struggling with a different work thing, we want to have empathy for where they're going so we can work with them. Maybe they're meeting our needs, maybe they're not meeting our needs. But I think at this point, it's really important to understand that being able to, again, I'm going to take, I just want to make sure I have the name correct, Katie, to really understand what someone's going through. That's really going to help you to kind of work with them, to be understanding, to be supportive. So again, thank you for everybody for responding. I'm going to jump to the next slide right now. Self-care. So again, at the basis of being empathetic to yourself, you have to practice self-care. And self-care is the essential practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's health. And there's tons of different ways that you can practice self-care. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be spiritual. So there's so many different things. And in terms of like a lack of self-care, that's what leads to suffering. And again, we want to bring this back to empathy again. Like there are times when we're going to suffer the loss of a loved one, the loss of kind of routine and tradition that came with the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of those times we forgot about our self-care because there was so much of it, so much stuff going on around in the world. So again, like with self-care, and a question I pose to my patients now, and something that I pose to my patients like here as well, is how you see yourself when you look in the mirror and exercise, not how you look kind of in the physical sense, but really kind of looking into your mind, your body, your soul. It's called the third eye in a sense. What do you see when you look into that? So I'm going to ask everybody here, like, how do you practice self-care? And before I get to that, I just want to point out, Kimmy put a really good point, and empathy is more like intuition, being able to see and analyze. That is so true. And I think with self-care, when we think of empathy for ourselves, we really need to be cognizant of how we're feeling. We need to take stock of, like, you know what, we might not be feeling great today. Maybe today's a day where we need some self-care. So I want to ask you guys how you practice self-care. So I'll just start with myself. A big thing for me for self-care is exercise. I'm a big runner. I love to play sports with my friends. I'm in a softball league, a basketball league, and also kind of watching my shows, reading, playing video games. So again, I'd love to hear what everybody else does for self-care, because, you know, we're all going to have different routines. We're all going to have different regimens, but it's really important to figure out, okay, what in your routine can you fit? Whether you have kids, whether you work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, you're a manager or you're not, it's really important, again, to find self-care. And again, thank you so much, Kimmy, for participating, meditating, writing, long drives, singing. You don't want to hear me sing. You're probably a better singer than me, but all great exercises, all great things you can do to take care of yourself. And again, exercise, getting outside, connecting with friends. Thanks, Katie. Again, all really good things that you can do to take care of yourself. And Jen, I think something really big there is unplugging with social media and taking that time off, taking that PTO day. My mom always used to let me and my sister take like one mental health day a month. And you know what, even that we're not in school anymore, sometimes we do need that mental health day to take care of ourselves. And then I see Robert putting there, carving out that personal time. And that's a big point right there. With self-care, it's really difficult when we're parents, we're husbands, we're wives, we're bosses, we're all these different things. We might have to carve that time. If we know Wednesdays at 5 o'clock is a time that we have an hour before the kids come home, when work is done, that's a time you do self-care. And Sam, hiking, that's amazing. I live in upstate New York, New Paltz. I don't know if anybody knows that. It's amazing hiking there. So I totally agree with that. Exercise, keeping busy. Thanks, Richard. Katie loves New Paltz. Yeah, New Paltz is amazing. I totally recommend, if you want to take your mental health day, go to New Paltz, go to Mohonk, go to Minnewaska. I'm going to get off my high horse there. I'm a little biased, but again, keeping busy. Everybody's putting some great things there. And again, thank you all for participating. Take what you see in the chat, take what you learned for this presentation, really try to incorporate self-care as much as you can into your routine. I'm a big proponent of it. Okay, I think this is an important slide here to talk about struggle and resiliency. The first thing I want to say is I'm a person-centered therapist. What that means is it was created by Carl Rogers. It's the idea that human beings have the innate ability to succeed, no matter where you come, what your background comes from. I think that's an important piece to start this with, because struggle comes from both internal and external factors. Struggle can come from the pandemic, it can come from just being sick. And your struggle is different than my struggle. The way I looked at the pandemic and how it was struggle for me was probably different than Katie or Kimmy. So it really depends, again, and that's a big part about empathy. To bring it back to empathy is, like, we have to understand that Katie's struggles, you know what, are different than my struggles. And maybe I'm struggling more than Katie with certain things, but Katie can have that ability to be empathetic with me and see, okay, this struggle and it affects me in a different way than it does to her. And again, this is an important thing when you're kind of trying to support your colleagues and be there for them. You might have the same experience, but it's going to be a different perspective for either you. And then the big thing is we are just inherently resilient creatures. If you told us in, I think, March of 2020 that we were going to be over 2 years into pandemic, I think, and all our lives were changed, I think a lot of us would be, I don't know if we could do it, but you know, we're here, we've done it, we've cried, we've struggled, we've screamed, we've yelled, but we've been happy too. And I think at the end of the day, we are a very resilient creature. So this might not be a typical question that you would get in a presentation, but because May is Mental Health Month, I really want to ask you, what is a time in your life that your resiliency helped you deal with a period of struggle in your life? And again, you don't have to share anything you don't want to. You don't have to get too personal if you don't want to. You can use kind of an example, even if it's of someone in your family or a friend you know is resilient. I will say that for me, a big period of in my life is I went to school in Florida, and I'm from New York, as you could probably guess. And I had family that was sick, and I had exams, and I didn't think I could do my exams while wanting to be there for some sick family members. So at that time, I kind of had to navigate it. And there was times where I was doubting, should I finish school? Should I just go home? And kind of with support from my family and just support internally, I realized, you know what, I did have that ability to finish school, do well, and still be able to take care of like kind of the needs of my family and get back when I need to. Again, if anybody would love to share, that would be great. Again, we're such resilient creatures. It could be something as like you hurt your ankle and you ended up finishing a game, even though maybe you could have sat it out. So again, resiliency and struggle is something that's going to be very important, and something that you have to be empathetic to with your colleagues, with your family, with your friends, because again, we're going to all look at things differently. And then I see somebody in the chat, Kimmy, I hope it's okay I share this, but she said, trying to grieve the loss of her mom, raising 3 children as a military spouse with a career, no support network locally. Wow. If that's not the definition of resiliency, I don't know what is. And I appreciate you so much for sharing. And I would imagine everybody else here echoes that sentiment, because I think loss and grief is something that takes a lot of time. It's different for everybody. I actually specialize working with grief. So again, I can't imagine how difficult that is. And I can only imagine how amazing of a person you are to be able to navigate that, especially with no support. I think not having that support is a big thing. And that's going to come back to what we're going to talk about later, is we have to support each other. It takes a community. You know what, we're all resilient creatures, but there's times where we need to not be strong. And I would imagine, like in your situation, Kim, you've had to be strong the whole time. And there's times where it's okay to kind of rely on somebody at work, or even just take a day off to just kind of go to the spa, get a massage, just not work and watch your shows. But again, thank you so much for sharing that. That's very personal, and I really appreciate that. That's very brave of you. So again, thank you. So I'm going to go to the next slide, which kind of goes into supporting ourselves and others. We experience stress, struggle, and pain in different ways due to culture, age, and past experiences. And I think what's really important is word choices and body language can identify struggle in yourself and others. I think especially when we're working and we have our really upbeat coworker who comes in every day, always put a smile on everybody's face, see standing straight, standing tall. And then you notice that one day they come in and they're slouching. They don't say good morning to you when they start their day. They kind of just go right to their office. I would imagine that's a time that something's going on with them. And we will get to later in this presentation, different kind of phrases and things that you can say to colleagues, friends, and family when they're struggling. But I think in a sense, not only with our colleagues, but also with ourselves. Okay, are we kind of using more curse words? Are we kind of being shorter with ourselves, with our family? Those are things that we can really identify that there are struggles going on with people. And you know what? People are going to, like I said earlier, they're going to experience these in different ways due to different experiences. So I think this is time to also be culturally competent as well, because people from all these different backgrounds, different demographics, we're all going to experience things in different ways. So I think it's really important to just kind of be in tune with ourselves, in tune with others, like go on the computer, read books, interact with different people. And I think that'll help you in a sense to not only support yourself, but others. And so I want to ask everybody here, because I would imagine everybody has some things. What are signs in other people that they are struggling? I know I initiated some discussion right there. Some other things that I really see when people are struggling is just kind of how the way they look in their face, how they're carrying themselves. Again, is that smile not there? And that's okay if you don't smile, that's fine. But like, again, you want to see, you'll notice typically the patterns that people show in their interactions with you. So I think it's really important that when you notice something different, typically something's going on. Maybe, you know what, they just didn't get a good night's sleep the night before. But again, okay. Yeah, there you go, Robert. Lack of sleep. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, you can see that whether it's from work stuff, from family stuff, your 2-year-old son just like won't go to sleep. And again, Katie, a really good thing right there is withdrawing. I think that's a very important thing to recognize as we're trying to be there for not only our friends, but our colleagues as well. They're withdrawing as somebody typically loves to speak up in their weekly meetings and they're not speaking up for a few weeks on a row. Maybe something's going on. And then to kind of add on that, Sam, thanks for sharing, changing an attitude as well. Somebody coming in very upbeat, very content, very calm, and they seem to be kind of disruptive, angry, stressed, probably a good indication that something going on. And Kimmy, distraction. Are they distracted? Are they not kind of as on the ball as they've been on the past? Are they kind of not focusing as well? So those are things where you can notice that other people are struggling. And then a really good thing is, I don't have a specific name, but some may suffer in silence. And that's it's a very true point and also a very tough point because it's very difficult to be able to detect when somebody doesn't say anything that something's wrong. That's why you notice these body language, to be aware. And I think when we kind of get back to that point of cultivating empathy, body language is a really good place to kind of start, of just kind of noticing how people are when they're in a better place. And then you see people are struggling, noticing like kind of how their posture is. All these different things come into play. So again, thank you everybody for kind of participating and supporting. And this is a really important slide, what to say when you sense struggle. So I'm going to just go through a bunch of these. And I would love if anybody can share some different things they say. So you can read some of these. I'll say some of them that I think are important. Take your time. There is no rush. I know it can be difficult to talk about this. I'm here for you, which is probably my favorite one, because I think at the end of the day, when somebody's struggling, there's kind of two camps. It's people who want advice and people want somebody to listen to. And you're going to find that out pretty early. Somebody's coming to you to vent about their relationship that just ended, vent to you about their boss, vent to you about a work assignment, vent to you about their kids. Okay, maybe they want some advice. Maybe you should look at it this way, or maybe you should look at it that way. Other times it's just like, you know what, just letting you know I'm here for you. Tell me what you need to say. And then it could be, what can we do to make things better? Call me if you ever want to talk. All these phrases are good conversation starters, and they're going to give you an idea of what that person needs. Because again, maybe somebody comes to Sam comes to vent to me about her boss. It's different than when Jen comes to me to vent about her boss. Sam might want more advice. Jen might want somebody to listen to. And again, especially with being a therapist, my thought is like, you know what, there's no cookie cutter approach. Every person is unique. So I'm never going to do that. Even if somebody has similar issues, I'm never going to approach them the same way. And I think you guys can all do the same when you're supporting colleagues. It's never going to be the same exact way that you're going to support someone. It's going to be different from each person. And I think being malleable and your ability to be empathetic, your ability to be supportive is really important. So again, if anybody has any like lines or words or ideas that they could share with your colleagues here, I think it would be really helpful, because struggle is something that we all face. And I think the last person who put some may suffer in silence, I think typically at the workplace, that's what happens. I think typically people don't get into it at work about what's going on, whether it's a loss, something at work or at home. So I think it's really important that we're just aware. And I think this is also a proactive approach with being empathetic and supporting our colleagues. It's just being there for them when the times are good, not only when the times are bad. And again, yeah, I hear you is such an amazing thing to say. I think probably like very similar to I'm here for you, but I think in a sense, maybe more important. So again, Kimmy, you're crushing it. Thank you for sharing that. Like sometimes people do need to be heard and acknowledged in their feelings. And I think that's very true. It's validating what they're going through. It's not just kind of offering them advice or doing that. It's just kind of being able to validate, to support them. So again, I think that's a really important thing to say. And again, when we talk about struggle, people are always going to struggle. As much as I remember when I was young, I kind of thought I didn't realize there'd be so much struggle going into adulthood. Obviously, there's a lot of good things can happen, but I think just being there for someone, knowing that you have a support network. So again, to kind of just get back to empathy right now, we can be empathetic even if we kind of didn't know we were being empathetic in the past, I would imagine everybody here has been empathetic to somebody in their life at some point, and probably multitude of times. And I think this is a skill that will really help you. Like, again, as we're navigating a post-pandemic world, there's a lot of changes. It's really important to be able to be there for someone, not only so that they'll have your back in the future, but just knowing it's a good feeling. I love doing what I do because I can be able to be there for you. And I think something that I did want to say now is being empathetic, there is a burden to it. I think being able to understand what's going through, there is a temptation to kind of branch into sympathy and kind of experience what they're going through. So again, you don't want to go through that burnout. You don't want to have compassion fatigue. It can happen though, but I think it's really important. Again, that's where we get to the self-care again, is just really being aware of what you need in that moment. I know I need to like kind of run. If I'm having a tough day, I have to, no matter if it's raining, no matter if it's snowing out, I need to go out there and exercise. So again, develop a plan with yourself. Also, that's where the health mentorship program, I'm going to put a plug in that for that right now, is you can work with a mentor such as me or one of my colleagues to kind of figure out ways that you can be more empathetic with yourself, ways you can be more empathetic with your family, your friends, and your colleagues. So there are resources out there to do that. So just kind of conclude where we're at today is you really want to prioritize your mental health and your emotional well-being. And it's a bit corny, but it's so true. Like if you see something, if you see someone struggling, if you notice something going on, say something. If they don't want to talk to you, if they don't want to hear from you, that's fine. But I think kind of Kimmy put a good point. Like some people just want to be heard. Maybe like I know Kimmy talked about not having a big support network. Like I think being able to know that people like care for you, people want to be there for you, it really does feel good. And I will save some questions at the end, but right now I'm going to redirect it to Sam right now, who's going to kind of give you some more like job specific, PSEG specific resources. So Sam, you can go ahead.
Thanks so much, John. That was fantastic and very impactful. If you could go to the next slide, some of you I know are familiar with this, but it's always a great time to bring this up, are the different tools that you do have resource or access to through PSEG. So I'll go through them really quickly. I'm not going to read the whole slide, but we do know that you have resources through Horizon Behavioral Health if you are on the medical plan, and for family members that are on the medical plan. You do also have Next Steps Consult from Virgin Pulse, which is kind of like a concierge service to help you access the needs that might be most beneficial for you. And then of course there's health coaching through Virgin Pulse, with details on how to sign up for that within the slide. And then your EAPs are the Beacon Wellbeing for PSEG and CCA at your service in Long Island. And they have their specific things that you can look for, or things that you can, or how to reach out is within that slide as well. And then of course, your Be Well slides on or accessibility on Virgin Pulse. So the different ways that the different vendors and all the different programs that you do have within Virgin Pulse, it's all at your fingertips there. You know, when we talk through, for example, the health mentors being a resource, you know, you do have to go through your EHE exam in order to utilize health mentorship through EHE. And then once you do have your exam, you have accessibility to that for up to a year after the exam, which is a really great resource that's available as well. And lastly, I know we're finishing up kind of early, and John did leave some time for questions, but I will make sure that everyone has their voucher code for joining us for Let's Talk Wellness today. So John, if you want to go to the next slide, and we can make sure that everybody has access to it. For those of you that are on the phone, it's SETW B8, N as in Nancy, DTK. So that's for your Virgin Pulse points for joining us today. And then I'm going to pass it back over to John to take any questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. And I just want to see in the chat, Kimmy just said she's an ADHD empath and know that this is a part of our program. That's great. And I think that's a really important thing. You have Sam, you have me, you have different resources that you can go to support. And I think it's really important recognizing that you have support out there. This is a skill that you can build. It's, yes, I do agree that there's a part, I think we all have that innate ability in ourselves to be empathetic, but I think it's really important that we that we kind of culture that, and that we really like make it happen, and we really support ourselves, we support other people. So again, like I think there's so many ways that we can kind of utilize this to support ourselves, support colleagues. And again, we have a few minutes left, so if anybody has any specific questions, you can put it in the chat box below. And again, as Sam said, if you're interested in health mentorship, you have to sign up for an EHE exam, which are amazing. It's going to be the most detailed physical you've ever gotten. I'm not just saying this because I'm an employee, but I've gotten some in the past and they're pretty amazing. But again, I'm happy that you got something out of this, Kimmy. I'm hoping that other people got stuff out of this. And you know what, I learned from you all too. So I think it's very important, again, that like this is something that we just want to just like think about on an everyday. Be conscious of what you can do to yourself. Be conscious of your employees. It's so true. Just kind of checking in on that employee, that colleague one time, seeing how they're doing. It can make the world of difference. People remember that. People value that. So again, if you see something, say something. So I'll kind of wait another minute or two to see if anybody else has anything else to say. But again, thank you everybody for participating. Thank you PSEG and Jen for giving us the opportunity to talk today. This is an important topic. And I'm seeing, okay, Jen's kind of putting some information about the voucher code, because obviously you want your points for this. But again, I'll just wait another minute or two. And if nobody has anything else to say, again, thank you just for giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic. And if anybody has any further questions, you guys know where to reach me.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you. I want to reiterate what John said. Thank you all for being here today. The recording is going to be made available as well. And thank you to John for putting this together and making it so interactive and personable. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. It doesn't seem like there's too many more questions. So I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for, again, having this discussion, this feedback. This is a great presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.